It's a beautiful day, wife. Today I got a promotion. I can't believe it. I thought Plong Nong would get it instead.
It's good news for us. Maybe now we can settle payment for the car.
Yes, ha 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 ha. Daddy, what's that sound? Daddy, what sound?
Oh God!
Oh God! Mama! Gotta find shelter. Oh, Mama! Oh God, Mama!
What happened? Juhan? Mahmud? No! Juhan! Mahmud!
Floods, defined as an overflow of water that submerges the land. Floods are one of the most destructive and dangerous disasters in the world. And with the increasing frequency of its occurrence in recent times, it has become more and more important for us to understand not only the damages that it does, but also how it can lead to personal crisis. Now, we have reached Crisis Now headquarters, where we are going to explore with you the different factors that can lead to personal crisis. Madam Nurelaza Yaakobu, a 41-year-old plantation worker, was with her family on an outing in the local neighborhood when the 2003 Johor Bahru floods occurred. Within this flood, Nurelaza lost her livelihood, her job, and her husband, Juhan. Today in this interview, Nurelaza will share with us some of her initial concerns and thoughts just when the flood had ended. Let's go.
Could you share with us how you initially felt during the flood?
I remember when the flood occurred, that the only thing going through my mind was, oh my God, it's a flood! How are Juhan and the kids going to get away? It all happened so fast, and it all ended so fast as well. It just left me shell-shocked when the flood passed.
It must have been horrible and so terribly frightening.
It was both terrifying and numbing. I didn't even know how to respond when it ended. There was nothing left anywhere, just bodies and rubber floating everywhere. Our house was just gone. All our precious memories were all gone. Even the plantation that I worked in had been completely flooded over. There was nothing left.
What did you do when you knew you survived?
Well, the first thing I did was try to find my husband and kids. I had grabbed hold of my daughter when the flood came, but Juhan had held our son when we got separated by the water current. At first, I couldn't find them, but I found Juhan and our son later on lying on a piece of rubber. Juhan was dead by the time I reached over. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I remember thinking about what we were going to do. Juhan was gone. Our house was gone. Everything was just gone. I didn't even know how we were going to survive.
Well, as we had observed from the interview, the primary concerns of flood survivors will first of all be fear of death or injury to oneself or loved ones. Also, there will be the damage or destruction of their own property or ownings, loss of significant or irreplaceable items, and the loss of their job or livelihood. However, this is not the end of the list. Even after the primary concerns are met, the survivors will still face the next series of concerns, the secondary concerns. Now, secondary concerns are split into two categories: physical and psychological concerns. Let's go back to the interview to take a look at these concerns.
It must have been hard to survive after the flood.
Well, I remembered that there were many difficulties after the flood ended. Firstly, we faced a lot of financial hardship. We had lost all our property and money. It was hard for us. We also spent many months homeless while waiting for the government to relocate us. During that period, everyone suffered greatly. There was never enough of anything. No medicine, no food or clean water, no place for us to clean up or do our business. Many of my close friends died due to disease and starvation.
Well, as we can see, physical concerns include financial difficulties, the loss of property, continued death of your loved ones due to infections or disease, and lack of living resources such as food and healthcare. Next, how about the psychological concerns?
How do you manage in the new living area?
It was hard. Everyone was just so different. People from everywhere affected by the flood has been sent over. Nobody knew anybody, and we all just felt like we didn't belong any longer. My kids also reported having nightmares at night over the floods. My son told me how he dreamt that Daddy had been swallowed by the water monster, and that he didn't dare to bathe any longer as the feeling of water made him anxious. Most nights, we couldn't sleep. It was just so hard. But we had no help from anyone, no one to count on. I remember some of the people in the neighborhood even committed suicide. I guess they just couldn't live with it any longer. Even now, my children still have nightmares now and then. And they are already so old.
Now, to have a better understanding of the psychological concerns that flood survivors have, we have Dr. Apa Bangsana here today to share with us. Dr. Apa Bangsana is a crisis worker who actually participated in the 2003 JB flood aid efforts. Dr. Apa.
Hi.
Yes, it's a
Nice
pleasure
to
to
meet
meet you. Could you share with us further?
Sure. Personally, I think that what's even more damaging than the physical challenges for people would be the damage to the mind that they face. There tends to be a trauma on the flood victims and their families for long periods of time. And the impact on the children are usually even worse. They can feel stress, depression, anxiety, and emotional disturbance all at the same time.
And do you think actually that the relocation of these survivors play a part in this psychological problem?
Definitely. The relocation has robbed them of a feeling of community and also robbed them of their families. Because of this, people had a hard time finding social support, which is a very important psychosocial resource loss. I remember reports of how people committed suicide even months after the flood has occurred. There just wasn't enough support for them.
I see. Now, besides primary and secondary concerns, we also have to take into consideration the tertiary concerns. For this, we will go back and speak to Dr. Apa Bangsana.
One of the very common issues we observe is the development of psychological disorders after the flood. Because of the exposure to post-disaster stressors such as the lack of coping and living resources, cases such as PTSD may arise.
Then how do the families cope?
Well, we try to give all of them counseling and the social support they need, but we are very short-handed at the time. Additionally, I remember that there were cases of increased domestic violence during that period. I imagine it was due to the stress, anxiety, or PTSD suffered by members of the family which led to the violence.
I see. So would it be safe for us to say that even if they did survive, people are in some way still in danger?
Definitely, people need to understand that even if you survive, you will still suffer from physical and psychological scars for a very long time. We need to resolve this for people to truly recover from the disaster.
Now then, we have come to the end of this episode of Crisis Now. Remember, it's important for us to understand that even if a person survives a disaster, there are still primary, secondary, and tertiary concerns that, if not resolved, may lead to a personal crisis for the survivors. For a person to truly survive, these concerns must be met. So this concludes this episode of Crisis Now. Thank you, and remember, surviving the disaster does not mean the end of the crisis. In the next episode, Crisis Now will visit the organizations that help flood victims, interact with leading crisis workers about the resources and programs available for the survivors, and discuss with world professionals about what more can be done to help these survivors. Crisis Now up!